ora, maloelele, talofa, bula, kia orana, and hello from New Zealand, the Pacific, and to wherever you are in the world. And I'm sure there's a lot of people around the world tuning in to see my guest today on the Straight Up Show. So Straight Up is all around getting into the minds and the souls and the hearts of leaders in the health and sports profession, and just seeing what makes them tick, seeing what motivates them, what makes them get out of bed every day. And if you, the listener, can get any pearls of wisdom or little bits of gems out of these episodes, then it's worth it. And I'm sure you're going to get a ton today from my guest, Frano Botica, my good mate. Botsy, welcome along, buddy. Thank you very much for coming.
Great to be here.
Let me introduce you, because you're an old fella. It's only my generation. And they probably knows the younger generation probably is more familiar with your sons, Ben and Jacob, who are forging an awesome professional career overseas. But for everybody, let me introduce you. You're obviously an All Black, 7 times capped as an All Black, 7 times capped as a Kiwi Rugby League player, 179 caps for the mighty Wigan in the UK Super League over there, Rugby League. Kevin, my partner here in crime, attests to, you're also a Croatian international, which technically, I guess, makes you a triple international. And I want to talk to you about that later on as we go too.
Yep.
Also a New Zealand Sevens representative, 86 to 88 or 85 to 88, unsure there, but obviously forged a very good Sevens career there too. And also a cap for the Anzac 15 versus the British and Irish Lions way back in 1989, Botsy. And I've got a quick question on that one. Did you wear number 12 in that game, the Anzac 15?
Yeah, I did actually.
And was that your only international cap as a second five?
Yeah.
It was.
I wasn't. I don't think I was big enough really to be second five.
I reckon they.
I'm big enough now, but I just wasn't back then.
Yeah. But I actually thought that you were the first of that real sort of 10-12 combination. I mean, obviously later on, Carlos could have played 10-12. Carter obviously did, but I think you were the first of that real sort of skillful, explosive first five that could double up as a second as well. So I was a bit disappointed we didn't see more of you at second five. Obviously, I'm a number 12. I'm very biased. But before we carry on, Frano, I just do want to make a mention and some sincere condolences, obviously. In the last week, on the same day, we lost 2 greats of the game. And we just want to send some condolences out to the families of Inga Tuigamala and Joelle Vinderi. And I know that you are obviously very close with Inga at Wigan. Have you got any memories of either of the two of them, Frano?
I think firstly, it is sad that they both passed on the same day. 2 great rugby players who did a lot for people on and off the field. I think I do have one of Joelle when I came back. It might have been the last game against Counties with North Harbour. And I think there's a photo of me lying on the ground and he just fended me off in the face and carried on running. So it wasn't a great day that day with Joelle, but certainly was a great player. Inga, a lot of memories with Inga, obviously. Inga, the winger, he made a big impact at Wigan, both on and off the field. I think on the field, with all his bullocking runs, he was a hard man to stop. He scored a number of tries and set up a lot. I think the other big thing that he did was that he put Jason Robinson back on the right tracks. He was actually drinking a lot, had a lot of off-field issues, and Inga sort of took him under his wing and changed all that, and probably helped him to become the player that he became. Because if Inga hadn't been there, I would have thought he probably would have gone off the rails and lost it completely. So, like I say, both on and off the field, he's made a huge impact, and that's only one of a number of things. Some of the funnier things, I suppose. Obviously, in most rugby teams you play in, there's a lot of language which isn't the best of languages, and Inga tried to change that for a little bit and make us stop swearing. It sort of only worked when we were around him, because he's a pretty big presence. And when you did swear in front of him, he'd start walking towards you and say, "What did you say?" And we'd obviously walk backwards pretty quickly. So, but yeah, a great loss to rugby league for those guys.
Yeah, absolutely. And obviously I didn't know them as well as what you did, but I certainly crossed paths with them on a couple of occasions. And both, as I described last week, both just true gentlemen. Obviously, men of God as well, and really, really true and hard in their faith. And as I said, just gentlemen. I do remember even Joe Alley in later years, and you and I when we were coaching sevens as well, Bots coming across Joe Alley and shaking his hand. I remember just looking down and seeing those the bumps on his arms from his dialysis and just thinking, oh boy. So I want to lead into something else here as well around life after rugby. I know I'm jumping ahead a bit because I do want to go back to the start, but this sort of leads into, I guess, is the health of rugby players once they've finished their professional careers. And Inga and Joe Alley are good examples. I mean, Inga had a very public and emotional battle with obesity and his health issues, and a really brave battle. And obviously, as I said, with Joe Alley with his kidney and dialysis, very similar to what Jonah had. But can you describe for me how hard it is? Because, I mean, if we look at not only at Inga and Joe Alley, there's Sione Lauaki, you've got Dylan Mika, you've got Norm Berryman. These are guys dying far too early. So a lot of it comes down to maybe health issues, but then how hard is that transition from being a professional footballer to all of a sudden waking up one day and you've got to find a job and you don't have to study as much or train as much and you don't have to watch what you're eating? How hard is that transition?
I think it's for some people it's a lot harder than others. I think with the Polynesian players and the Māori players, it's a lot harder for the bigger boys. That rugby, the training every day and watching what you eat, obviously keeps that in check. But once they've finished, it becomes a lot harder to motivate. We all know that, Māoris and Pacific Islands, we like to eat. And if you're not training, then it can be, it can put a lot of stress and strain on the body. And for some reason, a lot of ex Polynesian and Māori players just look at food and they put weight on, So it is really tough for them. I think for guys like myself who are a little bit smaller, it's not so bad because we don't mind either running or doing some form of exercise to keep that weight down. But even now, it's still not as easy to get rid of, and it does take a lot of time and effort, dedication. I found it interesting to see with changing the subject that with COVID and obesity and all that they give out Kentucky Fried Chicken to get a jab. That's absolutely the most ridiculous thing I've ever heard in my life.
Yeah.
But that's what they did, probably because, they know that the Islanders and the Māoris love that sort of food.
I know, mate. Don't get me started on that. It's another subject for us. But you are so right. So was there any education back in your day, making that transition? Like, obviously, if you look at what Ben and Jacob are doing overseas, there's a lot of education, a lot of support there around life after rugby. But for our generation, I can't remember ever being sat down and saying, hey, look, mate, maybe we need to do this or do that. Did you get anything either from union or league around that area?
Not really. I think it was sort of slowly starting to come in when I came back and played my last couple of years with North Harbour. Things were slowly starting to change, but back in those days with us, not really. I think that when you got to a hotel with the All Blacks, then you would be eating basically what was on the menu, whether that was a smorgasbord, you eat just about anything you wanted. I remember actually, it wasn't the best thing, but all the Brown brothers and the All Blacks, when we were in Cardiff, we were bored one day. So we ended up doing a hamburger crawl and going to all the hamburger bars and seeing how many hamburgers we could eat and who could eat the most, just for something to do, That would never happen these days. But we did that.
Didn't have a nutritionist as part of your team, was it?
We didn't have a nutritionist. And the funny thing was that the person who won was John Gallagher.
Oh.
He came along with us and he ended up beating everybody. So
that's a classic.
It was the dumbest thing we did because by the time we finished, we were not feeling too well, as you can imagine, eating that many burgers.
Exactly. So you obviously
But
weren't.
yeah, so it wasn't really around back then. So especially after rugby and things you do after rugby, or mental health was never around that much either. It was just sort of harden up what's wrong with you, so.
Well, that was going to be my next question, was around that mental health as well. Now, John Kerwin has been very vocal about it, and he's a real legend in that area around education, etc. So, you got to think about, I'll use you as an example. I mean, you're playing professional footy, you're in front of thousands of people. One of the things I didn't mention was that you were the fastest player to 1,000 points in UK League. So you were held in such high regard over in the UK, especially, but also back here in New Zealand. How hard is it mentally to all of a sudden hang up your boots, and then all of a sudden there's no support, there's no crowd, there's nothing to train for, and you just eat what you want? I mean, that must be pretty hard.
Yeah, I think especially when you come off playing for a number of years. I mean, I think I finished when I was 38, just before I turned 39, and the body was pretty shot by then. The knees were buggered. So I had to sort of find something to do that didn't involve running, basically, because I couldn't run. And it was pretty tough. Like you say, you don't have the people around you, or too many people around you, to give you guidance. And because of that, through the end of my career, or in the last 5 years of my career, I ended up making some bad business options and losing money, and a few other things that weren't great. When if I had probably the structures around me, which professional players have these days, probably would have saved a little bit of money, I would have thought, and helped me progress after rugby. So, for example, I just watched a video of my son just did his first solo flight today, and in France, they're looking at what's happening after rugby and helping fund your job choices after rugby. So he's doing his pilot's license, and he is they're helping fund that as well, because it's life after rugby and what he's going to do, and he wants to be a commercial pilot or some form of pilot after rugby, and those sort of things weren't around when we were back in those days. It was just like, damn, what am I going to do? Because a lot of us, like myself, we left school reasonably early, had no trade behind us, which would have been handy to have. So when you finish, it's like, heck, what am I going to do now? So it was some reasonably challenging years.
So then I guess that leads into the next question. It sort of all leads into each other, I guess. I remember my first North Harbour training was your last one, and it was early 1990. And I was just a young fella, travelled up from the Waikato, and you're doing these bomb kicks, the league bombs, with the point of the ball, and all the boys like, see, you are going. You're like, no. But you knew then that you'd signed a contract, and you didn't turn up to the next training. Next minute, it's headlines: Frano Botica's gone to league. What was your big motivator there? I mean, yeah, okay, money, yes, but what other challenges? What was your big motivator to change from the All Blacks and going to a league career?
I think once I shifted over, I think it was really just because I needed a new challenge, and I had a mentality which wasn't in the right frame of mind as far as making probably choices. So I'll give you an example. So I decided to leave Rugby Union because I'd be able to kick as well as he could kick. I'd practice every now and then, but I just figured out I'm never going to be able to be better than him or beat him, so I might as well go and try my hand at rugby league, because I was always wondered how I would go at league, So fast forward, if I'd known all I needed to do was get the right mindset, say that I could be as good as Foxy, practice as much as Foxy, then I could be as good as Foxy. But that wasn't the mentality I had in in those early days and playing for the All Blacks. You know, my mentality was, well, maybe the next coach will pick me. Maybe the next coach will say, well, let's have a running first five instead of a kicking first five. So that was my mentality in the All Blacks. When I left and I went to a team stacked with 12 internationals who played for either New Zealand, Australia, or Great Britain, I had to figure out, well, there's only one more position left in that team, and that's a wing. So now I've got to become a winger. I'm not as fast as some of these wingers. I'm not as big as some of these wingers. So I need to add something else to my repertoire. And that was, they didn't have a very good goal kicker or too many good goal kickers. So I thought, well, now I'm going to be a goal kicking winger. So I need to change my frame of mind. My mindset needs to become, I can be as good as him. I will practice as much as him, and I will be better than him. So that's the only shift in my mind that I should have had in the All Blacks. But it took me to leave, you know, besides the money, it took me to leave to figure that out. And so things could have been completely different if I had that mindset in the All Blacks and practiced the way I should have practiced it.
That's a real gem. That's a real gem there, is that shift in your mindset and your shift in your focus. So
And you know, it was just one day I went, damn, if I'm going to make this team, I'm going to have to practice and practice till I get it perfect. Otherwise, it's going to be the same thing's going to happen. The only difference is it's going to be in England in the freezing cold, and I'll be sitting on the bench, but it'll be 0 or -2 degrees, and I'll be freezing my nuts off.
Yeah. So how much has that shaped your rugby coaching career then? I know we're jumping around all over the place, but this leads in because the reason I say that is when you came in with me and we did the North Harbour Sevens, I mean, what was so amazing about you was your ability to the one-on-ones. It was around that mindset. And I remember that even just the kicking and helping the kickers out, helping players out with their mindset, etc. How much has that really impacted you with your coaching and how?
I think, you know, I when I started coaching with Sevens and then also with North Shore Prems, I think it's important that you surround yourself with good people and people who sometimes have a little bit more knowledge than you. I found that being your assistant coach, for example, although I was a good Sevens player, my Sevens coaching, I was pretty well. I was very limited. I hadn't done any Sevens coaching, so being around you helped me to pick up certain things and move forward with the way I wanted to coach and move on to the Philippine Sevens when I did those guys, for example. In the 15s game, the same thing happens. And I suppose this is what you need to do after you finish playing rugby. Surround yourself with people who can help you get to where you need to be in whatever area that may be. So in coaching, for example, you know, I'll always get a really good businessman become my manager. You know, I'll get again really good forward coaches or back coaches to come along and help me and just structure it so that with everybody's knowledge we get to have a team that will be reasonably successful or very close to being successful every year. But it is surrounding yourself with people, you know, and a lot of times they have a little bit more knowledge than you, and to be humble enough to say, well, mate, I don't know everything. I'll get so-and-so over here and this fella over here. And as a team, we'll combine and make this a quality team. But it's also got to have the right culture around it to blossom, you know?
Yeah, exactly. And I've always likened it to obviously to a businessman running a corporation. I guess, you know, he doesn't have the only say. He's got all these people around him. One of my favourite sayings, especially at the moment in the environment we're in, is that bees don't spend their lifetimes telling flies that honey's better than shit. So again, it's not just around surrounding yourself with like-minded people. It's also around pushing people away that don't fit your values or your morals or your culture as well. Have you had to make some tough decisions in your coaching career around that, around sort of telling someone, hey, look, sorry, but mate, you just don't fit what we are all about?
Yeah, look, I've managed to. There's have been guys who have wanted to come to the team, and I've sort of talked to other coaches who have coached them and talked to other players and stopped that cancer coming before it got there.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
Which has been good. Other ones would be just guys who are, I just wouldn't pick them, and they
What
might.
what about as a player? Who was a coach that you have taken from? I mean, I like him as a coach. I'm going to use a lot of his values or his the way he operates.
I liked Thorbs a lot, Peter Thorburn.
Yeah,
he was great. He knew when to and he knew when to be a sort of mix and mingle with you, and then once things got serious, whether it was at training or discussing rugby, then he'd flick a switch and change just like that. So he was probably one of the coaches that I really admired. I think John Money, Rugby League. I think, although he didn't like me to start with, he was big enough to admit he was wrong after I started to prove myself and then figure out, okay, so now that that's happened, how do we make you a better rugby league player?
Yep, excellent.
So those two stand out.
Yeah, Thorpe's for me as well. I mean, he was such a knowledgeable chap, but exactly, you hit it on the head. He'd sort of distanced himself at the right times, and I'd always say too, as a coach, that I'd have a beer with the boys, but you'll never find me in the back seat of the bus. And I think that's one of the things you want to be empathetic with them and be a mentor to them, but at the same time, we do have to separate as coaches from players to be able to make those tough decisions.
Well, yeah, exactly. Otherwise, those tough decisions, you may not become that tough because you're too pally with some people, and end up having a favourite or something, and that's the last thing you really want to be doing, because that will start to fester through the team.
Absolutely. Hey, I want to go way back, because I'm from the mighty South Waikato. And something occurred to me the other day that I saw this rugby poster of all these South Waikato rugby greats. And you got on there Richard Kahui, Quade Cooper, you got Isaac Boss, you got Brian Morrissey, Paul Kotika, Jeff Hines from back in the days, and Frano Botica, Mangakino.
Yeah.
What? Explain that, mate. You never told me that.
No, mate. I think I was about 2 years old when I left there. But yeah, my dad was building. My dad was was on all the dams around there. So born in Mangakino. So yeah, it's amazing. I just every time I go through Tokoroa and that and any of the outer lying towns around that area, how many successful sports stars have come from those areas. It's sort of like in Taranaki, it's like Waitree,
Yeah.
The
little Walter, your good brown brother at Harbour there. Another
one.
Walter's
from down. He's from down there. I've bumped into his brother who was down there for a fair bit too. So.
Yeah, mate. So we claim you as a South Waikato boy.
Yeah, mate. I'm in there, mate. That's me.
So from there, obviously, then transferred straight up to the North Shore and through the schools at North Shore to Westlake.
Yeah, I was. I actually started my rugby at Glenfield, even though my dad played for Shore. Mainly because it was handy. We lived just down the road, so I could ride my bike to training.
And who was in your Westlake first 15 teams that has also gone on to?
Rawbone was there. Nick Laurie.
Yeah,
he was in the team. Grant Ferguson was in the team.
Yeah. Geez. All good Bays boys, and you ended up
all good Bays boys.
Yeah, well, apart from
Sheep was in there. Sheep was in there as well.
Oh, was he? What a team, hey! Did you actually play much footy?
We got into trouble in the weekends.
Yeah, I bet.
It was all Nick Laurie's fault, actually.
I've got a question from one of my old mates, Michael Rapinett. He said, ask Botsy what his first time in Harbour colours were. Do you remember the first time you pulled on a North Harbour jersey?
I think it was New South Wales Country or something.
Okay, it wasn't North Harbour Māori versus with Buck?
It could have been, actually. I wasn't thinking of the of Harbour Māoris, but I can't remember which one came first.
Excellent. So you played for Auckland before playing for North Harbour, correct?
I think I had one game for Auckland or off the bench.
Yep. And do you remember then that whole time around the formation of North Harbour Rugby and how excited you were? Was there any apprehension? Because obviously you guys then had to go to third division. So was there any ideas that maybe you and Buck would go back to Auckland?
None whatsoever. I'm a shore boy through and through, so I'm Harbour through and through, mate. It's hard to watch them sometimes, and it has been over the years, but still a Harbour boy. Played for the Chiefs, so still follow the Chiefs. Don't know about the Blues. They keep jerking Harbour players, so I'm still a bit bitter and twisted after 20 odd years. So.
Well, Kevin there is a staunch Hurricanes man, and I have just been copping grief for the last 3 days after that game at the weekend.
Oh, mate, I loved watching that too. I loved it. Like I say, mate, if you don't keep picking, you don't pick enough Harbour players, you can. I'm not following you.
There you go, mate. So, what do you think the Blues went wrong on Saturday? Just getting off track a bit. I mean, it's hard to pinpoint it, wasn't it?
Yeah, it's hard to pinpoint. I mean, it's just that really it was that they had that game won, and it's that last, well, probably their last kickoff, I suppose, but their last 5 minutes, it was like, or last 2 minutes. I don't know. I think Tuivasa-Sheck actually did really well at 12. I was sort of wondering how well he would go, but I think the majority of the time he did well. He's still just got to work on a couple of little things, but I think that he looks pretty sharp there. I think, mate, surprisingly, Julian Savia, he played well at 12 as well.
Yeah, I thought the same. I said to Kevin, we had a bold rugby discussion yesterday, and I said very similar. I said it's hard to pinpoint that the Blues actually really imploded. It just seemed as though all of a sudden the Hurricanes flipped a switch, and someone like Ardie Savia just took over the leadership. And once they got on a roll, it just seemed as though everything crumbled. It was only 8 minutes. It was unreal.
I think you find, like there's certain teams, and the Hurricanes are one of them, that if they get on a roll, even if they're down by a large number of points, if they get on a roll, then you got to be really careful. It's sort of like, reckon you play Messi or someone, and you let them get on a roll, and they're hard to stop. If you stop that roll, then they get lost, Yeah. So yeah, they're one of those teams you got to just keep fighting to the end, I suppose. And if you give them a sniff, then and it's reasonably close, then you could be in trouble.
Yeah, well, we'll move on from that. Oh, Kerry, I thought, okay, go on then, Kevin. Say what you want.
No, I mean, I've got a few questions. No, I won't mention anything about the game that you lost. But Frano, cheers. Awesome to speak to you. I have a couple of left field questions for you. First off, Croatia. Your grandparents were Croatian, I believe.
Yep.
We had guys like Matt Cooper, and the Graham brothers and all that played for Croatia. What made you go and play for Croatia?
Well, I've always played for them when I was playing Rugby Union. So I was always, when I was younger, I played for them. It was a Yugoslav team back in those days. So I'd always been on a couple of those trips that they used to go on a trip every few years over there. So I'd been on those. Obviously, I hadn't played for the All Blacks for a long period of time, and I was proud to have the opportunity to put on that jersey and play for the national team. Yeah, and I was there with Matt Cooper as well.
So they had quite a good Kiwi influence there, because I mean I enjoy watching the second and third tier nations in Europe, and so had I mean Croatia have had their ups and downs in recent years, but when you guys were there, did you feel any sort of groundswell because people like Matt Cooper and yourself were there, and believe it or not, Sean Fitzpatrick could have played for Croatia as well. Did you know that? He could
Yes,
have.
I knew that. I definitely knew that.
Yeah.
Yeah, look, I think I don't know. I suppose I should really just push for my boys to have a go and play for them as well. I mean, they're just over in France, so it wouldn't be hard for them to, if they're not playing, to go over and play for them. They would both certainly help their cause.
So yeah, well, so second question, you've got Ben and Jacob over there in France. Ben's been playing in France now for quite a while. Is he nearing the end of his career? Because he's playing currently for Castres. But I mean, is there a possibility we could see Ben Botica maybe playing for the French?
No, he won't be. He's not eligible to play for them. So that will never happen. I think he's got 2 more years after. He's got 2 more seasons after this one at Cast, and then not sure what he'll do. If they keep paying for his flying lessons, he'll probably stay there to get everything he needs.
Okay, and probably the last question I have, which is more for my Heartland rugby whānau, is so right. North Harbour, Division 3, you get to go to places like East Coast and West Coast and Buller and play all these guys. Any amazing stories that you might have had going down to the coast and taking on the boys down there or over to Ruatoria?
Ruatoria, yeah. I suppose the funniest thing is just having a truck on the sideline with people on it and the truck just moving up and down the field, watching us. Some strange smelling smoke coming across the field, which happens down in those places, and then probably getting fed afterwards. I think we all had a couple of crayfish each, so that was by far the best place to go for after matches and being fed, without a doubt. Yeah. And I think it's just going to all those little towns around New Zealand back in those days. You know, it was the only sort of way that a lot of us actually went to visit those places. I mean, albeit for a couple of days to play rugby, but you know that the warmth you get from all the people down in those smaller townships is amazing. You know they'd feed you all day. They look after you. They treat you like a local. They invite you to their houses. And that back then was the essence of New Zealand rugby. And hopefully we don't lose that. It's very hard in this professional era to keep that going. But and with the last couple of years has never helped either. So
boy, don't we miss that though? Eh? It's just the feed after the rugby game, or even just going up to the clubhouses, packed clubhouses, and then watching the All Blacks in a daytime test. But even just going further than that, just the All Black tours, and I'm thinking back to that '89 tour, that must have been something else because you had all the midweek games, etc. I know that you and Foxy were obviously battling each other for those test spots, but you were able to get a few All Black games under your belt there on that tour, and obviously with the good, the bad, the rugby documentary that came out, we got to sort of get a bit of an insight. How memorable was that in particular for you?
Mate, they were fantastic trips. Obviously, it was still amateur back then, so it was great to go on those trips, and they were a lot long. They were reasonably long, some of them 5 weeks and all that sort of stuff. So. It was a long time, I suppose, away from family. It was a long time without getting paid, unless you had a job that paid you while you were away. I remember I had a career business, so I think I worked from 6 a.m. to 6 p.m, then went to rugby trainings for club rugby. I think I paid back then I paid $500 a week for a driver, and I think we got an allowance of like $120 a week, I suppose, for allowance. So
just hard to fathom nowadays, isn't it?
yeah, it's hard to fathom nowadays. And so when the league came along, and I was like, man, this is going to burn me out, working this hard, because you also had to fit in training. So I was based in Carbine Road, so I had 40 minutes where I could run around Panmure Basin a few times, come back, throw some water on me, grab a sandwich and jump in the van and carry on working, So I did that for like a couple of years.
Yeah. So
and it does become tough.
I know that obviously back when you went to league, it wasn't, I wouldn't say controversial, because by then you had Mark Brookcardin had gone, John Gallagher, Matthew Ridge, even guys like Apollo Perolini, Johnny Schuster. So it was a little bit of an exodus at that stage. So you wouldn't have felt too much guilt or regret at the time?
No, not at all. But I think at that point, we all thought that we were probably the only one going, because we kept it. Everybody kept it quiet. There was Ridgie as well, and everyone kept it quiet. So then I think I was about the third one in line. Once somebody, it might have been Ridgie, might have been the first one, I think. And once he did it, and then maybe Schuster did it, then I did it. I was like, "Oh, that's all right. All the sting's gone out of it now. So I'll just tell them that I'm going too." Clever, you see. Clever.
I do remember Ridgie live. It was a documentary or something or other, and he left because maybe a similar boat to you. He was behind John Gallagher at that stage, and then they filmed him at Manly, and they told him the news that about a week or two after he signed, John Gallagher signed, and he was like, "Are you kidding me? He could have been."
I don't think he'll complain when he looks back.
Absolutely.
But Jeff, you mentioned Apollo Perolini. He's actually working in Dubai. With as a RDO and rugby director there. So it's great to see these guys still being involved and for me in these smaller nations, preparing it. So with you, Frano, and helping out the Philippines like Jeff had, I know you. I mean, do you still have your foot in the rugby game, or have you just gone, okay, that was part of my career, that was my life, and now you've moved on to something new, or what?
Well, after obviously we won the North Harbour competition last season, so I was maybe thinking about whether to carry on. So I decided I'd carry on this year, but that got cut short due to certain restrictions placed upon me.
It's an uncensored platform, so you're allowed to say whatever you want. But I understand if you don't want to be too controversial.
Because I wasn't vaccinated, obviously, I'm not allowed to coach, which is a lot of bullshit, but it's the way it is.
That is, and we're losing a legend of the game because of that. And hopefully these mandates stop pretty quick, and we can all just get back to a bit of sanity and normality, and you can get back to doing what you do best, which is hopefully helping North Shore win another championship.
Look, I mean, the boys who have taken over are great. There's Rua Tapoki there, so they're in great hands. But it's just the fact that I get like me, and I'm not. There's plenty of others, and I think the biggest problem is just school kids, who can't play sports in some schools because they're not vaccinated, which is again, like I say, a lot of bullshit. And they need to just get the data from around the world and sort it out, because it's ruining children. And there's a lot bigger problems happening in New Zealand and around the world, apart from COVID,
Yeah, absolutely. I totally get you, mate. And we've had some long chats on this subject. So let's go back to, I just want to quickly, because I know I'm running short of time, and I do want to ask you a few more questions. I really want to go back to your UK league career, because just seeing comments on the Wigan supporters pages and things like that. You're a real legend over there. You were taken in by the UK and basically one of their sons, certainly a Wigan son and a Wigan legend. So can you, because I wanted to ask you around, did you ever play with Martin O'Fire or was he a bit before you?
No, played with Martin.
Old Chariots.
Old Chariots, yeah. He was, I remember when he first arrived, we started to get some extra things in the changing rooms, extra food, extra drinks, which we weren't getting until he arrived. And he came in thinking he was the king of everybody, and we had a team full of stars, and he thought he was. He looked like he thought he was better than everybody. So, when he turned up, he went and had a shower after training. Boys got all his gear and threw it all in the drink container, and said to him, "Don't come walking around here like you think you own the place, buddy." And
so what are the personalities there? Because I remember I played in the north of England, Yorkshire, 87, 88. And that was the first time I came across Charlie McAllister. We were having a beer at Bradford and Bingley Rugby Club. I think it was Bradford and Bingley. And then he went to league as well. So he was another high-profile Rugby Union player that went to league. And then we'd go and watch the Leeds and Bradford league games. And this is when Mark Brookcowden was one of the first Kiwis there. Gary Schofield. It was Ellery Hanley. Oh man, what an era! So, did you play with Ellery Hanley, Sean Schofield? Was it Sean Schofield?
Yeah, I played with and against Ellery. He played for Leeds to start with, and then he came to us.
So, who was the best league player? I'm going to put you on the spot. Best league player you played with, either for the Kiwis, Wigan, whoever.
This league player we ever played with, probably Ellery Hanley was probably the best. I think Dean Bell was the best league captain. He was the equivalent to a Buck Shelford in his leadership style on the field. And the fastest was Martin O'Fire. I think Martin O'Fire is probably still faster than most rugby players these days.
He was electric.
The most explosive player was Jason Robinson. So when you're sort of surrounded by that much talent, it helps you to shine as well. I also think that the Wigan fans were absolutely amazing. They were crazy. They would follow you anywhere. You couldn't walk down the street without people stopping you, and it's just they just lived for rugby league, and it showed with the crowds that we used to get. The stadiums were packed, and it was just an amazing atmosphere to play in week in, week out. When you came from playing club rugby or for Harbour, when you didn't have full crowds. Well, you did when you had them at Takapuna, and sometimes you look back and you think, why didn't we just create a 5,000 or 10,000 people stadium at Onewa Domain? Because it shows, like in England, that's the sort of stadium you need to create some atmosphere where there's it looks like there's a lot of people and they're crammed in, as opposed to a 30,000 seater stadium with 5,000 people in it.
You're there. The atmosphere.
I'll just throw in there because I have to go against, like, I'm Hurricanes, Jeff's Blues, Frano, you're Wigan. I have to come clean and say I'm actually a St Helens supporter. So so would St Helens Wigan games be probably the bigger league games in England when you were there? I mean, because the rivalry there, every cup final seemed to be Wigan versus St Helens. Yeah,
it was. They had a very good team as well, and because they're just down the road, probably 15, 20 minutes down the road. The rivalry was huge. Yep. So they beat us a few times. We beat them more times than not, but it was pretty close. and they were always close games. And yeah, they got pretty fiery, those games.
I bet.
Yeah,
I remember having they used to have an old lady standing at the tunnel waving her umbrella at us, yelling at us and abusing us. And she was she would have been close to 90.
Did you play for the Warriors? I was over in the States, so I can't remember. Did you come back and play for the Warriors?
Yeah, I played 4 games.
Jeez. Okay, so there you
4
go.
games, and then I broke my leg.
Oh, okay. Gotcha. And then was that the end of the career then?
No, that was just the start of part 2.
Oh, because then you came back and
Part
played
3 or 4.
played footy again for Harbour, didn't you?
Yeah, then I actually went back and the funny thing was I was about to sign a contract to go back to Wigan, and I just wanted to get some money in the hand to sign as well as the contract, and they said okay on Friday, we'll send you the contract on Monday, and then I broke my leg on Sunday, and they said, "Oh, we've changed our mind, we no longer need you."
Oh, just like that, eh? Professional error. Welcome to
just
it.
like that. Thanks,
Yeah.
thanks for coming, but see you.
So I want to ask you the same questions around rugby union as well. If we look at your career, obviously with Harbour and the All Blacks and extended, around the best players you played with, same thing, most explosive, etc., most dynamic or influential. Do you have any off the top of your head that you can share with us?
Influential's Buck, obviously, when he was playing. Can't go away from that. Most skillful number 8 is Zinni.
Toughest to mark.
Toughest to mark. I reckon toughest to mark was probably there's a guy called Brett Petworth.
Yep.
Played for Aussie, and he went to league. He had probably one of the best sidesteps outside of Ruatapoki playing. So when you have a sidestep like that, they're pretty hard to catch.
Yeah, no, I remember him very, very well.
And then obviously you just got like when I was playing when JK was there, there's so many players you could name who were great players, and I'd hate to miss any of them out. I think the best halfback service, Graham Bishop had a really good pass. The longest pass was Paul McGann.
Mad Dog.
Mad Dog had the biggest, longest pass, which certainly helped me back in those days to look good. I think I learned very quickly when you're playing like in midweek games and you got Zinni as your number 8, you stick close to Zinni and tell him to just throw the ball to the left or to the right, and I'll be there. And you just let him do all the hard work. And he passes you the ball, and you look good because you ran through the gap. But he did all the hard work, mate. So
that's what the forwards complain about all the time, isn't it? They reckon that the forwards, buddy, win the games, and the backs decide by how much. And that's probably a classic example there.
Oh yeah, hell yeah. We're not stupid, mate. We're not stupid.
Sorry, Jeff. You've mentioned Ruatapoki's name a couple of times. I had privilege of having lunch with him at Ruatoria last year during the centenary. But starting to make sense now because I see North Harbour have called in the troops from the East Coast again, and we've got Hone Harawira, the East Coast captain, turning out for North Harbour Knights this year. So seeing those guys coming through, i.e. Mike Noble, another one from back in the day, when you see these guys coming up from Heartland into the teams like North Harbour, NPC, I mean, what sort of attitude are they bringing to these guys, the guys that have grown up in the big city, but then you get guys from, Ruatoria coming into the big city and showing their skills. Do they feed off the Heartland guys much when they come into these clubs?
Yeah, I think it just adds a different sort of dimension, and it because I mean back in those provinces, some of them have to do it pretty tough, and they do it there's not a lot of budget, so they work slightly differently, and they bring a different, like I say, a different dimension to it, and they've been in both worlds. So obviously that's going to help.
But they're hungry, eh? That's one of the big things I find is that people who change provinces or they move away from family or friends to chase their dream, they're the ones that have the hunger and the right attitude.
Well, exactly, and that shows, you know.
Yeah,
and they're great guys, you know, like they're all great guys. And so, like last year, for example, we spend a lot of time with all the coaches, just going to have yumcha or some lunch somewhere else, once every 4 to 6 weeks, and just talking about the game and talking about, how do you do things, you know.
Yeah.
Some of it's bullshit and we just take the piss out of each other, which is normal because generally speaking, the darker skinned fellas are the ones who always come to the lunches.
Especially if it's all free and paid for, eh, Frano?
Well, yeah, we did invite Gibbo from Harbour so that he could pay for it. So we're not again, mate. We think forward, mate. We think forward.
Absolutely. So just to current day, I mean, obviously I sort of watched your journey and we had a bit of a chat around your knee reconstruction. Now, correct me if I'm wrong, it's knees. You had both knees at the same time?
Yeah, that's right. Yep, had both knees at the same time.
And what an amazing, I watched your progress there and it seemed like you were a week or 2 weeks ahead of all of the surgeons' predictions around moving, walking up and down stairs, etc. How enlighten us with your determination to get back on your feet again.
I didn't want to go through that whole process twice, so I suppose it just comes back to just rehabbing when I was playing. I'd do everything I could to progress it as quickly as possible. Through walking, and I tell you, mate, I hate walking. Even when I'm fit, I hate walking. I never used to walk, you know.
Yeah.
So it was just getting into that space again of training to get these knees back to normal, and the progress was great. And they're good now. They're fine. There's no pain in the knees anymore.
Is there anything you would recommend, say, obviously Ben and Jake, that you can advise your sons around, some of the mistakes possibly you made during your career around rehab, as you said, rehab, diet, etc. What advice would you give young aspiring players today to be the best they can be in their one shot? I was talking about the one shot at their rugby or league careers or sporting careers in particular.
I think I would say don't put all your eggs in one basket. I would say worst case scenario is, when it's not the worst case, but get yourself a trade before you try and become a professional player. Because look, you could turn 21 or 22 and you've got a trade behind you, you know. But if you want to be the best you can, then don't. There's certain things that you need to go through to get there, and if you're not listening to the right people and doing the right things, then it's not going to work, because talent will get you so far. And after that, and I've seen so many over my coaching career and playing career, you see so many talented people who could have gone a long way, but I've seen a lot more people who just work harder, who get further because they're more determined and they don't just sit back on the talent itself, because it takes hard work and there's always going to be somebody better than you. So you really need to reinvent yourself every couple of years and add something extra to your game. Otherwise, there will always be some young fella coming through who might overtake you because you get relaxed in the way you feel. So I suppose number one, just being around somebody who you respect and gives you the right advice. Now, there might be 2 or 3 people and you pick out the best out of those 2 or 3 people, but you need to go through that process, because you can still be mentally positive, but deep down, if you haven't done the background and the hard yards at training, then no matter how positive you are in your head, you're not going to reach your potential, because somewhere in the back of your mind, there'll be a little fella saying, well, actually, bro, you didn't really do the training you should have done. Even though you're saying you're really good and you're ready for it all, you still, that little voice is going to tell you, you haven't.
Yeah, exactly. One of my favourite sayings is we never lose, we either win or learn. So it's around that positive mindset around, you may be down, but get yourself up, dust yourself off and move on again, isn't it?
Yeah, exactly, mate. Exactly.
So with the, because I'm big into obviously diet and exercise, etc. And as I say, being proactive around healthcare rather than reactive to a symptom. And that's a big thing that I work on. But it works well in your rugby career as well, too, isn't it? Because you can't just, as you said, I mean, so often we see these talented people or talented kids, they go through and yet they don't get enough sleep, they're eating bloody KFC, they're relying on maybe some natural fitness, and they don't achieve their potential. So again, a message then around sort of diet and exercise. What have you done in later years to ensure, as I said, I used your double knee replacement as a classic example. You're obviously driven. How do you get yourself out of bed every day? What's your mindset, and what's your advice to people?
I suppose, like, if you're going to do some fitness and stay on top of things, the best time to do it is early in the morning, because as the day goes on, you might decide that you're too busy. You'll make excuses. I want to have a beer. So if you get it out of the way, then at least you've done it. So I will generally 3 days a week. I get up at 4:10. I go to, because I live up in Gulf Harbour, it takes 40 minutes to get down to Takapuna Beach, and I do outrigger canoeing with a group of guys, and so I do that 3 days a week. So I get used to getting up early, and then the other days I'll get up and cycle on my bike in my garage mate, and it's only half an hour, mate. I don't want to be on there any longer than I have to, so I go hard out, work up a hard sweat, and then jump off. That's me done, go down. I think over this COVID period, I've become more conscious about my health and taking supplements, etc. I started doing the old Wim Hof breathing, and since COVID started, in the first winter, I've been swimming or going and plunging into the sea every day, or every other day. Even in
the Wim Hof method is the ice baths. Is that what you're talking about? I've seen.
Yeah. It's the actual breathing and hopping in ice baths. I don't hop in ice baths. I just jump in the sea in the middle of the winter, and I tell you, it's very fresh, but you feel good. But
brilliant. That is bloody good advice, mate. I love hearing stuff like that because you're doing well for 40, Frano.
Oh, thanks, mate. Thanks. I'll tell you what I do, but I also go and do. I mean, when I was at Wigan, my brother-in-law was there, and he's obviously a chiropractor as well. So I ended up using chiropractors all the time, and I still use them to this day. So.
Good on you, mate. Excellent. And I love hearing that. So before we wrap up, I want to give you a plug around what you're doing as of right now. You're obviously selling real estate agent. How do you describe yourself?
Yeah, mate. I'm currently selling real estate. I work for a company called UP Real Estate based in Jervois Road. I'm currently I sell a lot of houses just on the North Shore, but I'm just trying to move up a bit closer to where I live, which is Gulf Harbour, and trying to sell up on the Whangaproa area now. So looking forward to getting into this local area. That way I don't have to travel as far. But if end of the day, mate, I travel everywhere. It's not a major. It's part of the job description. Enjoying it. Enjoy the company that I'm with at the moment. And I mean, again, it's like everybody else. It's really tricky at this time, but we just have to stay positive and hope that at some point in the near future, things change and everything opens up and becomes a little bit more normal, or as normal as it can be.
normal. Yeah,
So,
exactly.
Jeff, I'll just quickly jump in there. So,
Yeah.
why is it ex-international rugby players all become real estate agents? Because I know Case Muse down in Otago is a real estate agent himself, and there's probably 2 or 3 others there. Is it just the personality of you guys, or what?
I'm not quite sure, actually. I think when I first started and left or finished rugby, I was I ran seminars and courses in companies for blue collar workers, on attitude and behaviour change, and I really enjoyed that. Then it got a little tough in that industry as far as getting enough contracts. So just made a change, and somebody actually asked me. Actually, the first North Harbour Sevens coach, Roger Sutherland, a Bays boy, he actually just said, "Mate, you should come and try this." So I went, "Oh, okay, I will," and that was about it.
The rest is history, as they say.
Yeah,
Excellent.
yeah. And now I'm enjoying this. It's obviously that you're just interacting with people. I enjoy that and enjoy this industry.
Well, I had to give you a plug, mate, because
Thanks, mate.
yeah, good on you. Even though my wife's a real estate agent, she's probably going to slap me around later for plugging you. But
I used to work. I used to work in that office there where your missus is. So
there you go. You know all about it with sheep, but sheep's back there now too. So giving everybody a plug there. So it's all about Frano Botica real estate. Sorry, we can't. Sorry,
exactly.
I'll get the adverts on the switched up version later.
Well, I'm going to send this video through to Kevin. He does a bloody good job of swishing it up. So he'll put your real estate up there and give you a bit of a plug, mate. So hey, look, we'll wrap it up, Frano. I know we sort of got a bit of a time frame here, but I really, really appreciate you coming on, mate. And that this is going to be gold, absolute gold. It's one of my goals is to, as I said, it's empowering people, and people are looking for leaders. They're looking, as you said, surrounding themselves with like-minded people, and if they can come to a video like this and watch and listen to you, and it makes them a better person, helps them achieve their goals in life, then we've succeeded, mate. So thanks so much.
No problem. Appreciate it. You're doing a great job out there too, Jeff. Awesome.
Good on you, mate. Appreciate it, brother. Hey.